The holiest day of the Jewish calendar is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. I want to talk to you about two most powerful words that you can say to, for example, a child. Most people think the three most powerful words. Most people think that the three most powerful words you can say to somebody are "I love you," and when meant, they are indeed very powerful. There's no question about it. I would argue, however, that in terms of sheer power, there may be three more powerful words that can be said, and they are "I am sorry." It's a lot easier to say "I love you" than to say "I am sorry." That's probably the toughest thing to say, especially to people that you do love, ironically. There's a very odd built-in thing, isn't there? It's an odd thing that God has built into the world, that it is precisely within that refuge from the world that the most hurts take place, and that's the family. I'm always amazed, for example, at how people will talk to or act towards a loved one or a family member that they would never do to a stranger. Isn't it remarkable when you think about it? It is. It is worthy of remarking. I mean, siblings. Siblings will treat each other mean. I don't mean, mock battling or even ribbing. I mean mean. Siblings, you sit at the table and you marvel at the way one of your kids is bullying one of your other kids. They would rarely, if ever, do that to another kid. I have been at places where I have heard one spouse insult the other publicly. I have cringed. They don't talk that way to strangers. There are kids who will not. I've done shows on this who have broken all contact with a parent. Now there are parents who have earned it. I mean, the way or the way in which sometimes parents treat children in ways where they're so forget just the obvious abuse, which would not be done again to a stranger, but to a child, but just the lack of respect. So I am thinking of the two of the three most powerful words, and I want to pose the question to you. Have you said them, or have they been said to you? And has it made an impact on the quality of your life? Have your parents said "I am sorry" to you? Would you like them to? Has your spouse, have your children, has a sibling, has a dear friend? Would it work? Very tough topic. It's a very tough one. I'll never forget the movie Love Story. Movies all very often have these mottos or these sayings that accompany the movie. The accompanying motto of Love Story was, "Love means never having to say you're sorry." And it came out, I think I was in college. And though I was the last person on earth to claim expertise on love, let me just tell you, that was not an area I knew was an area I didn't know much about. But I knew that was cockamamie. I didn't know why exactly, but I had a feeling that this was ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Love means never having to say you're sorry. As I have become an adult, I have realized it's the opposite. Love means frequently having to say you're sorry. The message was entirely wrong. It was utterly wrong. Because it's loved ones you tend to hurt the most anyway. Only if you give me examples, or really give my listening audience, your fellow listeners, if you give them a story where "I am sorry" has changed a life, then I think people can understand its power. It's interesting. We think very often about the importance of forgiving. It's interesting how much more society spends time on advocating forgiveness than it does on advocating saying you're sorry or asking forgiveness. That is an interesting thing, and I don't know exactly why. Because of the two, I do think that that's the more powerful one. Because forgiveness, if the person isn't sorry, is I think it leaves the forgiver with an incomplete sense that anything has been done anyway. Let's go to April in Casa Grande, Arizona.
Hi, Dennis. My parents cut off all contact with my sister and I 13 years ago, and all that's required for us to have a relationship is for them to say I'm sorry, but they absolutely can't do that.
This is I mean, I would ache to speak to them. It is so unnatural for a parent to do that. Why did they do that?
My father was severely abused by his mother. So when he had his children, it was important for him to be the best dad ever. But of course he wasn't. He hadn't dealt with his problems. And he sexualized our relationship, not abused us, but he would grab us, come in when we weren't dressed, make inappropriate comments, just things that were very uncomfortable. And we were in our early 20s and said, you know, I don't want you to do that to my kids. I wasn't comfortable with that. And if he had just said, you know, I'm sorry, I won't do that anymore, and we'll work on it, everything would have been fine. But he absolutely cannot admit that that was wrong in any way. And
it was
cannot
too painful.
Say he's sorry. Yeah.
And he cut off. And what about your mother?
She initially, I called her after he said, you know, I'm never speaking to you again. My sister called her actually, and she was saying, oh, I understand, I agree with you, I'll talk to him, everything will be fine. And then he came home, and she completely turned around, and she hasn't spoken to us either. And it's been devastating and it's funny because when you ask the question, the three most powerful words, what I thought you were going to say was, I forgive you. Because that's what I want to say.
Huh? I'm sorry?
Because that's what I want the opportunity to say, is I forgive you.
Yeah, but you can't till they say I'm sorry.
Right, and when you said that, I realized
that's why I am sorry. I'm sorry?
When you said that, I realized you were right. I was just looking at it from the other perspective.
Uh-huh. Oh, God, is this an important call? Listen, you have children, right?
Yes, and they don't know my parents at all.
Oh, God, listen, you just love them up, and you make the healthy home that you were not provided with, at least as an adult.
I pray to do that
I wish I could
day.
Talk to them. That's all I could say. Yeah, God bless you, April. You see, folks, I knew it. When I said the three words are not I love you, I knew a lot of you were thinking it's I forgive you. But it's I am sorry. I believe we have gone down a slightly incorrect path with our emphasis in our society on forgiveness as opposed to atonement. In other words, I forgive you have become far more suggested words, far more frequently proposed as a big solution to human problems than I am sorry. I am sorry is more powerful than I love you. It is more powerful than I forgive you. I forgive you is not truly possible without I am sorry. Now, some of you will argue that is not the case, and you have theological bases for that, and I never argue theology. I am not talking theology this hour. I am talking the reality of the human psyche and heart. Not only must I am sorry be the three most powerful words and regarded as such, but there is one other aspect to this that is most critical. And that is that you say what you're sorry for. I am sorry if I hurt you doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. Politicians use it, and individuals in their own micro relationships use it, but it doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry for doing the following. And then if the conduct stops, the other person has to forgive. In Vincennes, Indiana, it's Christy. Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to say how much I fully agree with you, and I didn't understand how much more powerful I'm sorry is than I love you until we have started trying to train our 2-year-old daughter to to say that whenever she does hurt somebody. And it is almost impossible. She just can't find it in her to say, I'm sorry. But she can turn around every second of the day to say, I love you.
That's right. And I love you is very easy,
comparatively.
It
takes so much out of her.
By the way, it works in both directions. Parents will say to children, I love you, far more often than I am sorry. It's in both directions.
That's right. And it really shows us that now is the time to be showing her that, it's okay and that it is a necessity to be saying I'm sorry, and to show her that now, and so that she has that for the rest of her life.
That's terrific. Thank you. You hit the nail on the head. Thank you, Christy. It's interesting. The holiest day in the Jewish calendar is not the day of forgiveness. It's the day of atonement. Atonement means saying I'm sorry. It hit me now how different that is and how powerful that is. God, this is so important. I can't think of anything more important than the three words, not I love you, not I forgive you, but I am sorry. And we have placed much too much emphasis on forgiveness over atonement. Atoning that's why the word atonement is a lot of people don't even know what it means. They don't use it. Forgiveness, my God, everybody knows what that means. You atone, then you get forgiven. That's the way it should work. Psychologically, morally, emotionally, you name it. That's the way it should work. Tim, hello, Tim.
This really touches me because I wanted to stress that sometimes this is how it's hurt me, or not hurt me, but how I've seen that not saying you're sorry can hurt someone to the point where saying you're sorry, even though you know in your heart that you really don't have to, just saying you're sorry can make somebody feel so much better, and it can mend a heart, even though I don't want to say you don't mean it, but people need to hear it.
That's right.
It was with my mother-in-law, and I won't go into the long story, but it was with my mother-in-law, and it was something silly and frivolous, and she got up and stormed out of a family gathering that we had, and a couple of days later, I realized that she was really hurt, and she was focusing on me, and I didn't feel that I had done anything wrong, but I decided that no matter what, and I went to where she worked, and I stood right in front of her, and I apologized, although I felt in my heart that I really shouldn't, I didn't have to do it, but I felt I should do it. And afterwards, ever since then, I felt it's one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
It probably was. And did she react accordingly?
We've never gotten along better.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point. It's magic. It's magic. Thank you, Tim. By the way, the only area I would differ a little with Tim is I think email is fine. I think smoke signals are good. Telegrams. It doesn't matter. If it's too difficult to say it in front of the person, write it. I'm a big believer in writing. How people might do better communicating with each other. I mean couples, maybe sometimes parents and children, if the children are older, in writing. So then you don't have to react immediately. You could think it through. You can choose your words. You don't start yelling. So if you want to say I am sorry in writing, say it in writing. Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's too difficult to just look a person in the face, it's okay. But they're the magic words, and you got to specify for what. Because otherwise you don't know what you're saying you're sorry for. It doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry if I hurt you. The famous words that a public figure, a politician will say after being called on the carpet for something. I don't know what it means, and he doesn't know what it means. Hello, John. Dennis Prager.
Our 9-year-old daughter came to us last night, and she said, I want to tell you I'm sorry. And I said, honey, for what? And she said, you asked me not to tell something in school. And by this time she was in tears, and she said, I couldn't help it, and I told someone, and I want to tell you I'm sorry. And I looked at her, and I reassured her, but talk about powerful. And
there's no power like it. If she had come in and said, Daddy, I love you, as great as it is to hear from a kid, it wouldn't have had the same power. I've always felt that. When a child of mine has said, I am sorry, I melt. I've melted. Anybody says that to me, and I melt. The Day of Atonement is the holiest day in the Jewish year, and it has prompted my reflections on this subject. It's the Day of Atonement, not the Day of Forgiveness. You get forgiveness after you atone. Atonement is the three most powerful words in one's vocabulary. I am sorry. And if you say what you're sorry for, that's the big thing. The vast majority of people will forgive you if you're really sorry. And you're supposed to when someone's really sorry. Absolutely right. But first you need the magic words, and they need to be about specific things. I am sorry if I hurt you doesn't do it. I am sorry for doing X, Y, and Z. That does it. The pain that is in family life is staggering. It is staggering. When I hear of the number of parents whose children have no contact with them, I just want to cry. That is too difficult to endure. You can say I am sorry, and again, it has to be for specifics. And I hope over time you will see by my behavior that I have earned your forgiveness. I have reviewed the nature of what an apology is, and what is the nature of an apology. And once again, it must first and foremost be, this is what I did wrong. Not, if I offended you, I'm sorry, or some will misconstrue what I said. That's not an apology. I really hope that I helped you in your personal life, not just in public life, to understand the essence of an apology. This is what I did wrong, not if I hurt somebody's feelings.